What is going on, guys? Kenny here from 619 Guitars and Gear, and today is pretty cool because we are going to check out and dive into this PRS SE Custom 2408, and it's pretty cool because it is the first time having this brand on the channel, and I'm really excited about it. So as always, let's get into it. Jumping right into the specs here, starting at the body, you have a solid three-piece mahogany body with a maple cap and then a flamed maple veneer. And I have to say, the figuring on this veneer is awesome. I've seen a couple pictures of this model where one side of the veneer will have like a little different or a little less figuring than the other side, and it kind of just looks weird, which is kind of to be expected. It's not consistent throughout, throughout the factory, but this one, I have to say, is really even on both sides, and it looks great. It's definitely a great looking veneer for being a veneer, I guess you could say. Some great figuring. Then the green stain, it just looks absolutely amazing. Not exactly sure what finish they use on the body and neck. I will put it up here, but the whole guitar, neck, and everything is a gloss finish. And then as far as the body, it is a pretty thin body. They call it the shallow violin carve, so it's definitely comfortable. Moving to the neck, you have a set three-piece maple neck. Looks like two pieces are quarter sawn and one piece is flat sawn, and then there's a maple veneer over the front of the headstock. What's actually different about this guitar than any guitar I've owned, it is a 25-inch scale. Something different that I've never had, although it's, for my playing style, it's not really noticeable playing it or anything like that. So yeah, I just think it's cool that it's different. I've had 24 3/4, I've had 25.5, I've had 26.5, but never a 25-inch scale. So that was pretty cool and worth mentioning. You have a rosewood fretboard. You have the signature bird inlays, regular white side dots, 10-inch radius on the fretboard, 24 medium nickel frets. You have a graphite nut. You have a dual action truss rod with a little, custom truss rod cover. So I think it's really cool that you get a graphite nut on this guitar. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less, honestly, at this price range, but you never know. Overall, neck feel, it feels really good. We'll do measurements when we get it on the bench, but I believe they call it a wide, thin neck shape. Definitely a thicker, rounder feeling neck, but not too wide, so it's pretty comfortable. I like thin necks on certain guitars, but I'd say for this particular guitar, I do love the way the neck feels. And what is also cool, on the two outer pieces of the neck, they have some flaming on them. It's kind of subtle, but it is there. I'll try to get a close-up of it. So I thought that was a cool little touch. And then moving on to the hardware, you have PRS regular Goto style tuners. Although I do want to upgrade to the PRS locking tuners eventually. You have the PRS patented tremolo, which is nothing fancy, I should say. I do not have the whammy bar in right now, but it all functions as it should. You have a little set screw here that you can lock the whammy bar in any place you need. So I thought that was really cool. And then moving on to electronics, you have one volume, one tone, a three-way toggle switch, and then these two little mini toggles, which is coil splitting for each pickup. I thought that was a cool little touch. It just kind of gives it more of that custom look, I guess you could say, with the two little mini toggles. And then for the pickups, you have the PRS TCI pickups in the neck and bridge. I believe the TCI is tuned capacitance and inductance, which is basically just a mixture of like different wire gauges that he uses and the different amount of wraps going around the bobbins, and also different magnet materials. There's a great video he did, Paul did, on the YouTube channel for PRS, where he goes into it way more than I can. It kind of just explains it and everything about the TCI pickups. So I have to say they sound great, which you will hear later on in the sound demo. But overall, a great guitar. I got this for a little over $900. I've seen them go for anywhere between $929 and like $950. Although you could probably get a used one a little bit cheaper. I had bought this brand new at Guitar Center. And yeah, let's go ahead, throw this thing on the bench and dive into it. All right, let's go ahead and check the action using my Music Nomad string action gauge. As I mentioned, I have not touched this thing, so pretty much it's how it came from the factory. I want to bet on that Guitar Center has not touched it either. We will also check the neck relief, starting millimeters. Looks like low E, we're at about 1.50. That's actually where I set my action to anyway, so that's probably why it's so comfortable. It looks like 1.50 all the way through. Let's check inches. So, yeah, it looks like, 0.07, between 0.06, 0.07. So, definitely a decent action coming from the factory. Let's go ahead and check the neck relief. All right, let's go ahead and check the neck relief using the 24 3/4 side of my straight edge. This is a 25-inch scale, but this should still work. And it does. And it looks like the neck is pretty dang straight. Little tiny bit of relief. I don't have any feeler gauges to get an exact idea, but yeah. So pretty straight neck. I want to say almost perfectly straight neck, and the action was at 1.50 or 0.06, 0.07. So definitely came set up very well. That's pretty much how I would go and set up this guitar for myself personally. So that's actually awesome. All right, now I want to check the width of the neck at the nut and at the 24th fret. We're going to use millimeters starting at the nut. Looks like we're roughly around 43.49 millimeters. So basically I'd say 43.5 millimeters. Let's zero this out and check the width at the 24th fret. Looks like we're at, it's jumping around a little bit. Looks like we're at 56.40 millimeters at the 24th fret. All right, I want to go ahead and get a rough idea of the neck thickness using millimeters, starting up here at the nut. Pretty sure this gauge is pretty accurate. I mean, it's not the most expensive gauge, but it's gotten me through. So it looks like we're around 20.82. So I'd roughly say probably we'll call it 21 millimeters. At the nut, and then we'll go here at the 12th fret, zero this out. Let me say 23.29 millimeters. So, not too bad of a neck. Like I said, they call it the wide thin neck, and it's very, very comfortable if you ask me. All right, so we got the back plate off, taking a look at the electronics cavity, and I have to say, I'm impressed. This is super neat. I mean, for my standards at least, I've taken some back covers off and just been like, wow, what is going on? And have had to neaten it up myself, but this looks great. You have your mini toggles. Looks like two 500K alpha pots. All the soldering joints look amazing, and your shielding paint looks great. There's a couple of bare spots, but nothing to be concerned about. Yeah, I give this definitely an A+. This looks fantastic. So let's take a second here and talk about QC. Now, I have looked this thing over very thoroughly, and I have to say, I'm very impressed. Being my second PRS, but first PRS that I really dove into and checked over. Everything looks great, but there is two things that I've found, very, very small things, but worth mentioning. We'll start with the first one, and that is this nut. Now, it is cut great. No complaints about how it was cut, but you can see here between the G and D string, seems to be this little tiny chunk missing. At first, it almost looks so uniform, like that it's supposed to be there, but it's definitely not, because it's kind of, you know, bumpy. So, not really too big of a deal. I mean, you can definitely notice it, even from looking at it from quite far away. Not a huge deal. Not going to affect playability. I'm sure the the strength of the nut isn't compromised or anything like that. So that is one of the issues I found. And then on the back here, again, not a big deal, but in this area of the neck, it's almost like there was a sag or drip in the clear coat that wasn't sanded out all the way. You can just kind of feel ever so slightly a little bump. Again, not a huge deal. It's just something worth mentioning. But other than that, the finish on this guitar is great. Gloss on the neck and body. No complaints whatsoever about it. The routes on this guitar are amazing. Everything's lined up perfectly. No complaints whatsoever. As far as the frets, the fret ends, I have to say, is one thing I am super impressed about. They are perfect, and I mean, it's like I went in there with my fret end file and rounded them over and smoothed them out. If I did the Philip McKnight test, I guarantee you it would be a 5 out of 5. They feel great, and I mean great. Frets are nice and shiny and polished, it looks like. I'll probably end up going in there and conditioning the fretboard and polishing them up myself, but it's really not needed because they look great, feel great, no complaints whatsoever as far as the frets. Like I said, everything's great, but I figured I'd mention just those two little tiny imperfections I found. Again, not going to affect playability, but worth mentioning. Alright, so real quick, we'll do a little sound demo with some high gain starting on the bridge pickup. And I'm using the Quad Cortex. I found a cool little capture of an MT-15, and I think it pairs pretty well with this guitar. All right, now real quick, we'll do a little bit of clean, starting on the bridge pickup. I just made a simple clean tone. I didn't really want to, add too much to it to drastically change the natural sound of the pickups. So we just put a little bit of reverb in it, and that's about it. All right, so we checked this thing out pretty thoroughly. We did a sound demo with high gain and clean, went over all the specs, QC and all that. Honestly, I think this is an awesome guitar. Definitely different style from what I'm used to. If you haven't noticed by now, most of my guitars are geared toward, thick strings, down tuning for chugging and just high gain, rhythm riffs and just stuff like that. I mean, playing metal is what I enjoy the most, but it's definitely fun having a different guitar, just a different style than what I'm used to. I've always kind of been interested in PRS, just never really found one that really caught my eye, and ever since I saw this one online, I believe I saw it in a Philip McKnight video. It just really caught my eye, and I had to have one. So for it to be hanging up in front of my face as soon as I walk into a Guitar Center, I had to have it. It was a one-time situation. Usually you're like, it'd be great if they have this guitar, but they probably won't. And then you walk in and they have that guitar. I mean, that usually never happens. So I think it was just meant to be. But honestly, great guitar. I can see myself keeping this thing around for a while. Nothing to really complain about. Maybe the gloss neck. It's not a preference. I don't mind it. I don't hate it. But, it's just I would rather a matte neck or an oil neck or just anything but gloss. But this one feels good. It's not too sticky. You can move around on it pretty good. And then the tuning stability on this thing it's not horrible, but it's not the best. I think it can benefit from some locking tuners, which I will probably end up doing. I know PRS makes some decent locking tuners from what I've heard. And QC wise, like we went over, there was only the thing with the nut and then the little bump on the neck, but doesn't affect playability. You can barely notice the bump on the neck. Yeah, you can notice the nut, but you know, if I smoothed it out, it would almost look like it's meant to be there. Honestly, I thought it was there on purpose until I looked at it and realized it was kind of rough and jagged looking. But other than that, this thing's immaculate. It looks great, no problems whatsoever. The electronics function great. Bridge functions great. I have the whammy bar for it. I've messed around with it, and everything functions in that aspect as it should. So no complaints there. It being a 25-inch scale, it's not even really noticeable. This is definitely not a guitar that I'm going to go put thick strings on and down tune. It's just not, it's not meant for that, in my opinion. I'm sure someone could do that, but this is something I'm going to keep. Right now I have it in drop C sharp, which is probably too low of a tuning for the strings that are on it. It came with 9 to 42s, I believe. But the setup on this thing is great. Like I had mentioned when we measured everything out, exactly how it came from the factory is pretty much how I would set this guitar up. Now, if I was down tuning it and putting thicker strings on it, probably put a little bit more relief in the neck, maybe higher the action a little bit. But other than that, pretty much how it came from the factory is exactly what I would do with it, or do with it to set it up for my preference. So I love this thing. Sounds great, feels great to play. I love the way the neck feels. It's kind of piqued my interest to see what other PRS guitars are like. As I mentioned, I had the Mark Holcomb 7-string. Definitely kicked myself in the butt for getting rid of that thing. But back then, at that time period when I had that, who knows why I got rid of that thing. I think I had it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. It was even before I had a YouTube channel, I think. So, or no, it was before I had a YouTube channel. So, who knows why I got rid of it. I don't even want to probably think about why I got rid of it, but kind of kicked myself in the butt for it. It'd probably be an awesome guitar to have now. Maybe we can get one. Maybe we can do a review on one. I actually know someone who has one, so maybe we can get it on the channel. That would be awesome. Or maybe I can just go out and buy one, because I'm still interested in it. It was a great guitar from what I remember. I don't really remember too much about it, but anyway, we're getting out of hand here. This thing's awesome. As you can tell, it looks fantastic. The flaming for being a veneer is awesome, nice and uniform on both halves of the veneer, and it's absolutely gorgeous with that awesome green stain. And I love the natural back. I think it just looks great. But anyway, that's about it for this video. Man, I'm doing the best I can with videos right now. I know it's kind of you know, big gaps in between videos, but with my work schedule, I'm just doing the best I can. That's all I can say. If you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you. If you haven't unsubscribed because videos have been so sporadic, I want to thank you too. But stay tuned for some videos coming up. I have some stuff locked and loaded, and just want to have fun like always. So stay safe. Be a good person, play your guitar, stay hydrated because it's been super hot out at work especially. I've been dying. But stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video.